Anthony Moretti walked into the hospital billing office at 9 in the morning, laid a folder on the desk, and told the clerk to cancel Margaret Carter's treatment. Not delay it, cancel it. He said he'd bought the debt for pennies, and he wanted the woman's name pulled from the schedule before lunch. The clerk asked if he understood she would die. Moretti buttoned his coat, smiled, and said that was the point. Then he told her to make sure the daughter found out from a stranger. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and stay with this story all the way to the end. And in the comments, tell me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Emily Carter learned to smile without meaning it the same way other people learn to drive. Badly at first, then automatically, then so well, she forgot she was doing it. It was 11:40 at night, and she was carrying a tray of 9 drinks across the floor of black velvet, and her left heel had a crack in it that she had been ignoring for 11 days. "Table 12 wants you," said Rosa, brushing past her with an empty tray held against her hip. "Table 12 always wants me." "Table 12 tipped $40 last Tuesday. Table 12 put his hand on my arm last Tuesday." Rosa slowed down. She was 53 years old. She had worked in this club longer than Emily had been alive, and she had a cough she kept swallowing like a secret. "You okay, honey?" "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." "That's the answer you're getting." Rosa laughed, and the laugh turned into the cough, and she turned her face away and pressed her wrist against her mouth until it passed. Emily stood there with 9 drinks going warm on a tray that weighed 11 pounds and watched the older woman's shoulders shake. "Rosa, don't. You need to sit down. I need to work, same as you." Then Rosa straightened up, fixed her face into the same smile Emily wore, and walked into the noise. Emily delivered the 9 drinks. She said thank you 4 times to people who did not look at her. She said of course twice. She said absolutely right away, sir, once to a man who snapped his fingers at her without turning his head. And she said it in a voice so warm and pleasant that a stranger listening would have thought she loved him. She was 24 years old. She had been a college junior 14 months ago. She had wanted to write books. Now she could carry 9 drinks without spilling one, and she considered that a real skill because it was. At midnight, the club got louder. It always did. The money came in later, and the money was louder than everything else. That was when a man at table 12 reached out and caught the hem of Carla's apron as she passed. Carla was 19. She had been working 3 weeks. She still flinched. "Hey," the man said. "Hey, sweetheart. I've been waiting 20 minutes. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll check on it right now." "Don't check. Bring it." "Yes, sir." "Look at me when you say it." Carla looked at him. Emily saw her face from across the room, and she saw the exact moment the girl's eyes went glassy and far away, and Emily knew that look because she had worn it herself, and she put down her tray on the service station and crossed 40 feet of floor in about 6 seconds. "Sir," Emily said, sliding in beside Carla with a smile so bright it could have lit a runway. "I'm so sorry. That's my fault. I pulled her onto another section. Let me take care of you personally." The man let go of the apron. "You're the one from before." "I'm the one from before." "You remembered my drink." "Macallan 1 large cube, and you hate it when it melts. Give me 90 seconds. He liked that. Men like that always liked that. Emily turned Carla around with a hand between her shoulder blades and walked her 6 steps toward the back. Still smiling, still radiant, and under the music she said, "Go to the storeroom. Count the napkins." "There's nothing to count." "Then count them wrong and do it again. 10 minutes. Go." "Emily, he was just, go." Carla went. Carla. Emily came back with the Macallan in 90 seconds, and she stood there while the man told her about his boat for 4 minutes, and she laughed in the right places. And when he tucked a 20 into her hand and let his fingers stay half a second too long, she thanked him and did not pull away because pulling away cost more than the 20 was worth. Then she walked to the service station and put the 20 in her apron and stood very still for exactly 5 seconds with her eyes closed. 5 seconds. That was all she ever allowed herself. Above her 40 feet up behind smoked glass on a balcony, almost nobody was permitted to enter. A man watched the whole thing. Victor Romano did not move when Emily crossed the floor. He did not move when she took the 20. He did not move when she closed her eyes. But he counted the 5 seconds. He had been counting them for 8 months. "You're doing it again," said Dominic Hale, standing behind him with a tablet in his hand. "Doing what?" "The waitress. I'm looking at my club." "You're looking at one section of your club. You've been looking at that section for 240 nights. Victor didn't answer. "I'm just saying, boss. People notice." "Which people?" Dominic hesitated. That hesitation was the most honest thing he had said all week. "People," he said. Victor turned around then. He was 41 years old, and he had a face that gave nothing away for free, and Dominic Hale, who was 6'3" and had broken men's hands in the parking garage of this very building, took a small step back. "Tell me her name," Victor said. "Who's—" "The girl you've been managing for 14 months. Tell me her name." Dominic's mouth opened. He didn't know it. He had signed her schedule 90 times. He had docked her pay twice. He had stood 4 feet from her on 100 nights. "See," Victor said quietly, and turned back to the glass. "That's the whole problem with this city, Dominic. Nobody ever learns the name." At 12:50, Emily's phone rang in her locker. She wasn't supposed to check it. She checked it. Northwestern Memorial, billing. Her stomach went cold and hollow in the way it had learned to go cold and hollow, the way that had become so familiar she almost didn't notice it anymore, the way you stop noticing a sound you hear every day. She stepped into the employee hallway, the one with the bad fluorescent light that buzzed like something dying. "This is Emily Carter." "Miss Carter, this is Denise from Patient Accounts. I'm so sorry to call this late. I've been trying since 2 o'clock. "It's fine. It's fine. Go ahead." "Your mother's protocol has been flagged." "Flagged?" "Suspended technically. The financial hold triggered at 4:30 today. She's scheduled for infusion Thursday and I can't clear her through." Emily put her back against the wall. "I made the payment. I made it Monday. $1,100. I have the confirmation." "I see the 1,100. "So, Miss Carter, the balance moved?" "What does that mean, the balance moved?" There was a pause. Emily heard the woman's chair creak. She heard someone laughing far away in an office at 1 in the morning, some person who got to have a normal night. "It means the account was purchased," Denise said, "by a third-party collector, and they've called the full balance due." "The full?" "Yes." "How much is the full?" "Miss Carter, how much is the full, Denise?" $94,216. Emily didn't say anything. She looked at the fluorescent light. It buzzed. "Miss Carter, I'm here. There may be options. There's a hardship committee. They meet on the 20th. "Thursday," Emily said. "You said Thursday." "Yes." "So the committee meets 17 days after my mother stops getting the only treatment that's working." Denise didn't answer, which was an answer. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said, and her voice was very calm and very reasonable, which was how you could tell she was breaking. "Who buys a dying woman's debt? Who does that? What's the business model? You wait for her to die and then bill her daughter." "I really don't have that information." "Is there a name?" "There's a name on the assignment, but I'm not supposed to." "Denise, please." The chair creaked again. "Meridian Recovery Group," Denise said. "That's all I have. That's really all I have." "Thank you." "Miss Carter, I'm sorry. I've worked here 9 years and I want you to know I hate this." "I know you do," Emily said. "I know. Good night, Denise." She hung up. Then she stood in the hallway for a moment and did the arithmetic, because that was what she did now instead of dreaming. She made about $400 a week at the bookstore. She made about $600 a week here if the tips were good, and the tips had not been good since March. Rent was $950. Her mother's apartment was another $800, and she had been 3 weeks late twice. $94,000. At the rate she was going, she would have it in 11 years. Her mother had maybe 11 weeks. Emily wiped her face with the flat of her hand quick and hard the way you'd wipe a counter. Then she went back onto the floor. Because the thing nobody tells you about grief is that it does not excuse you from work. At 1:15, Rosa dropped a tray. 4 glasses, 1 bottle, a full ice bucket. The crash cut through the music, and for about 2 seconds the entire club went quiet, and 200 wealthy people turned to look at a 53-year-old woman on her knees, on the floor, picking up glass with her bare hands. Dominic Hale was there in 8 seconds. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Hale. My hand slipped." "Your hand slipped. Yes, sir. That's a $900 bottle, Rosa. I'll pay for it. You're damn right you'll pay for it. And then Emily was there, kneeling on the floor next to Rosa, picking up glass, not looking up. It's on me, she said. Dominic stopped. What? I bumped her, coming out of the well. It's on me, Mr. Hale, take it out of my check. Rosa's head came up. Emily, no. Take it out of my check, Emily said again, and she said it pleasantly, and she still didn't look up. Dominic stood over the two of them for a long moment. He was a man who liked to be looked at when he was angry, and neither woman would give him that, and it made him feel obscurely cheated. Fine, he said. 900. And you're both off the floor for 20 minutes, and the 20 minutes is unpaid. He walked away. Rosa's hands were shaking. There was blood on her thumb. Why did you do that? She whispered. Because you have 4 grandkids, and I have nobody. Emily. I'm not being noble. Rosa, I'm being practical. You get fired, 4 people don't eat. I get fired, 1 person doesn't eat, and honestly, she's not eating much anyway. Rosa stared at her. And then Rosa started to cry right there on the floor of the most expensive nightclub in Chicago with 200 people not looking at her. And Emily took the glass out of her hands and said, No, not here, never here, hold it till the car. How do you do that? Do what? Hold it. Emily thought about it. I don't, she said. I just move it. Upstairs, Victor Romano watched a woman take a $900 hit for a bottle she didn't break on a night when she had $94,000 of debt she hadn't earned, and he did something he had not done in 3 years. He stood up. Dominic. Boss. The bottle. Rosa's bottle. Already handled. Came out of Carter's check. Reverse it. Dominic blinked. Say again. Reverse it. Tonight and Dominic. Yeah. If you ever take money off that woman's check again without coming to me first, you and I are going to have a conversation in the garage, and you are not going to enjoy the garage. Dominic's face did something complicated. Boss, I gotta ask, what is it with this girl? Victor watched the floor. Everyone in this room, he said, would step over Rosa to get to me. That one stepped over me to get to Rosa. At 2:10 in the morning, Emily counted her tips in the locker room. $184, minus the $900 she now owed, which was not a real number anymore. It was just a shape. Rosa was sitting on the bench with her shoes off and her feet in a plastic tub of hot water somebody had brought from the kitchen. Carla was there too, folding aprons she didn't need to fold because she was 19 and didn't know what to do with her hands after a shift. Emily, Carla said, can I ask you something? Sure. The guy at 12, does that ever stop? Emily looked at her. She could have lied. It would have been kind. No, she said, but you get faster. That's not an answer. That's the only answer I've got at 2 in the morning, kid. Rosa laughed and then coughed, and then Emily reached into her apron and pulled out the $184 and held out $140 of it. Take it. Absolutely not. Rosa. No. You haven't seen a doctor in a year and a half. I'm fine. You cough like my mother coughs. That landed. The room went silent. Rosa looked at the money in Emily's hand. Honey, she said very quietly, you don't have this. Neither do you. You have less than me. Then it's a wash, Emily said, and put it in Rosa's shoe and picked up her bag and walked out before anyone could give it back. Carla stared at the door. Is she always like that? Rosa looked at the money in her shoe for a long time. Every night, she said, every single night, and not one person in this building knows it. But one did. The camera in the locker room was not a camera. It was a maintenance panel with a camera behind it, and it had been installed 4 years before Emily Carter ever walked through the door, and it had been recording since the day the club opened. And in a room on the 4th floor, Victor Romano watched a girl put her rent money in a sick woman's shoe, and then he reached over and turned the monitor off because something was happening in his chest that he did not have a name for and did not want witnesses to. Emily got home at 3:15. Her apartment was 1 room and a hot plate on the 3rd floor of a building on Ashland with a stairwell that smelled like other people's dinners. There was a man sitting on the top step. She stopped 4 stairs down. Miss Carter. Who's asking? He stood up. He was maybe 30, nice suit, bad shoes, the exact combination that meant somebody else's money. "My name's Kessler. I'm with Meridian Recovery Group." Emily's hand tightened on the rail. "It's 3 a.m. "I know. I'm sorry about that. I've been trying to reach you during business hours." "I work during business hours. I work during all the hours. That's kind of the whole thing." Kessler nodded like this was reasonable. He had a folder under his arm. "Miss Carter, I'm going to be straight with you, because I think you've earned straight. Your mother's account was assigned to us on Monday." "Monday?" "Yes. I made a payment Monday." "I know. It cleared at 10:06. The assignment was executed at 10:15. Emily stood on the stairs and let that go all the way through her. 9 minutes, she said. "Yes, ma'am. They waited 9 minutes after taking my $1,100. I don't set the timing." "Who does?" Kessler didn't answer. "Mr. Kessler, who does?" "I'm authorized to offer you a settlement," he said instead. $31,000 paid in full within 10 days. That closes the account, and the medical hold releases, and your mother goes to her infusion Thursday like nothing happened. Emily laughed. It was not a good laugh. $31,000 in 10 days. Yes. Do I look like I have $31,000? No, ma'am. So why are you here? And here Kessler paused and shifted the folder, and for 1 second he looked like a man who did not like himself very much. "Because the client wanted you to know the number," he said. Emily went very still. "The client." "I've said too much." "The client wanted me to know it," she repeated. "Not to pay it, to know it. Miss Carter. He's not collecting a debt. He's showing me a price tag." Kessler said nothing. "Who is he? Have a good night, Miss Carter. Who is he?" Kessler went down the stairs past her. He was 3 steps below when he stopped, and he didn't turn around, and he said one thing. "Miss Carter, did your father ever gamble?" Emily's whole body went cold. "My father's been dead 11 years. "I know," Kessler said. "That's what I'm telling you." And then he was gone, and the stairwell door banged, and Emily Carter stood in a building that smelled like other people's dinners, and understood for the first time that whatever was happening to her had not started this week. It had started before she was old enough to remember it. She did not sleep. At 7, she took the blue line to the hospital, and at 7:40 she was sitting in a plastic chair next to a woman who used to be able to lift her. Margaret Carter was 58. She had been a second-grade teacher for 26 years. There were 4,000 adults walking around Chicago who had learned to read in her classroom, and not one of them knew she was in this bed. "You didn't sleep," her mother said. "I slept." "Emily, I slept a little. You have your father's face when you lie. It goes flat." Emily smiled at that, and it was the first real smile she'd made in about 11 hours, and it hurt her face. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Dad." Her mother's hands went still on the blanket. "What about him? Did he gamble?" The silence went on too long. "Mom, where is this coming from? Did he gamble?" Margaret Carter looked at the ceiling for a while. "Your father," she said, "was the kindest man I ever met, and he was very, very bad at knowing when to stop." "How bad?" "Emily." "How bad, Mom?" "He owed people," her mother said, "at the end. He owed people, and they were not the kind of people you can call the bank about." Emily's heart was going so hard she could feel it in her teeth. "You told me it was a car accident." "It was a car accident." "Mom, it was a car accident," her mother said again, and her voice cracked straight down the middle. "And I have spent 11 years letting you believe that because you were 13, and because I did not want you to grow up thinking your father was a man who lost you." Emily sat there. "Who did he owe?" "It doesn't matter." "Who did he owe?" "Emily, it was 11 years ago. Those people are gone. Somebody bought your hospital debt 9 minutes after I paid it, and then sent a man to my stairwell at 3 a.m. to ask me if my father gambled." Her mother's face went white. The monitor beside the bed picked up. "Not much. Enough." "What did you say?" "You heard me." "What was the name?" her mother whispered. "Emily, what was the name on the account?" "Meridian Recovery Group." Margaret Carter closed her eyes. "Mom, "Mom, what?" "That's not a name," her mother said. "That's a coat. Somebody's wearing it." "Whose coat?" And her mother, who had taught 4,000 children to read, who had never in her life ducked a question, turned her face toward the window and said, "Go to work, sweetheart." "Mom, go to work." Emily worked the bookstore from 9 to 4. She sold 11 books. She recommended 6. A woman asked her what she should read to feel less alone, and Emily gave her a novel about a lighthouse keeper. And the woman came back to the register and squeezed her hand and said thank you. And Emily thought this is the thing I was supposed to do with my life. Then she went home, changed into 6-inch heels, and went to Black Velvet. The club was slow until 11. It was always slow until 11. Emily wiped down the same 8 feet of bar 4 times because Dominic liked to see motion. At 11:20, Carla came running. "Emily, Emily." "What?" "There's a guy asking for you." Emily's hand stopped. "What kind of guy?" "The bad kind." He was at table 9, late 50s. Silver hair, beautiful coat, the calm of a man who has never once in his life been told no. He smiled when she came over, and the smile was warm, and it was the worst thing Emily had ever seen. "Emily Carter," he said. "Can I get you something, sir?" "Sit down. I'm not permitted to sit with guests." "Sit down, Emily." She didn't. He seemed to like that. "You know," he said, "I knew your father, Danny Carter, sweet man. Terrible cards. He used to sit right about where you're standing, matter of fact. Different club, same city." Emily's tray was shaking. She put it on the table so it would stop. "Who are you?" "Somebody who's been very patient," the man said. 11 years patient. "Is that supposed to scare me?" "No," he said, and he sounded almost gentle about it. "It's supposed to explain you. Do you know why you have this job, Emily?" "Because I applied for it," he laughed. It was a real laugh, delighted like she'd told him a wonderful joke. "Oh, sweetheart," he said, "nobody applies for anything in this city." And then Emily heard something she had never heard in 14 months of working in that building. The music stopped. Not lowered. Stopped. 200 people turned around, and every one of them looked in the same direction, and Emily turned too, and there was a man walking across the floor of Black Velvet, and the crowd was opening in front of him like water. Victor Romano had come down from the balcony. He had not come down from the balcony in 3 years. He stopped at table 9. He did not look at Emily. He looked at the silver-haired man, and when he spoke, his voice was so quiet that Emily, standing 2 feet away, could barely hear it. "Anthony," he said, "you're in my house." "Victor," the man said, and raised his glass. "You look old." "Get up. I'm having a drink." "Get up, or I'll have you carried out through the kitchen, and everyone in this room will watch it." And Anthony Moretti, who had made a dying woman's daughter stand at his table like a servant, put down his glass and stood and buttoned his beautiful coat and leaned in close to Victor Romano and said something that Emily heard and that she would hear every night for the rest of her life. "Does she know yet?" Moretti said. "Does she know why you watch her?" Victor didn't answer. Moretti turned. He looked at Emily. He smiled that warm, terrible smile. "Ask him about the 94,000 sweetheart," he said. "Ask him whose name is really on your mother's account." And then he walked out, and the music came back on, and 200 people went back to their drinks like nothing had happened. Emily stood there. Victor Romano finally turned and looked at her, and for the first time in 8 months, there was nothing between them. No glass, no balcony, no 40 feet of floor. "Emily," he said. Her whole body flinched. Because in 14 months in that entire building, out of every manager and bartender and customer and security guard, exactly one person had ever used her name. And it was him, and he said it like he'd been saying it for a long, long time. "Mr. Romano," she said, "not here." "What mean not here?" he said. "Go finish your shift. Smile at table 12. Take his money." "Sir." "And at 2 o'clock when the floor clears, Marco's going to come find you, and he's going to say, 'I want to speak with you and Emily.'" He stopped. Something moved across his face and was gone. When he says it, Victor Romano said, "Don't be afraid. Whatever you think this is, you're wrong." Then he walked away. Emily worked the next 2 hours and 40 minutes. She could not have told you a single thing that happened in them. At 1:55, Rosa found her at the service station staring at nothing and put a hand on her arm. "Honey, honey, you're gray." "Rosa, what is it?" "Do you remember," Emily said slowly, "when I got hired?" "Sure, 14 months, October." "Who hired me?" Rosa opened her mouth, then she closed it. "Dominic did the interview," she said. "But who hired me? Emily." "I never gave you people a resume," Emily said. "I filled out one page Rosa in a coffee shop off a flyer. Nobody called my references. Nobody asked why I left school. I walked in on a Tuesday, and I was on the schedule Wednesday, and in 14 months, no one has ever asked me a single question about my life." Rosa's face had gone strange. "And tonight," Emily said, "a man I have never met walked into this club, sat at table 9, and knew my father's name. At 2 o'clock, the lights came up the way they always did, ugly and honest, showing every stain on the floor. And a security guard the size of a doorway crossed the room toward her. Emily watched him come. "Miss Carter," Marco said. "Yes." "Mr. Romano wants to speak with you." Emily set down her tray. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She had expected them not to be. "Marco," she said, "can I ask you something first?" "Sure." "How long have you worked here?" 9 years. "Then you'd know," Emily said. "In 9 years has Mr. Romano ever asked to speak with a waitress?" Marco looked at her for a long moment. And then very quietly, a man twice her size, who had never been afraid of anything in his life, said something that made the floor tilt under her feet. "No, ma'am," he said. "But 8 months ago, he asked me to make sure you got to your car." "What?" "Every night since November. He's had somebody walk you to the Blue Line every night for 8 months, and he told us if you ever noticed, we were fired." Emily's mouth was dry. "Why?" Marco started toward the stairs. "That's not my question to answer," he said. "That's his. And Miss Carter." "Yeah. Whatever he tells you up there," Marco said, "believe the part that hurts. That's the part that's true." Marco took the stairs first, and he took them slow, which Emily understood was a kindness because it gave her 4 extra seconds to get her face right. At the top, there was a door. Not a big door. A plain one, the kind you'd walk past in an office building without thinking, and somehow that was worse than if it had been carved out of teak and guarded by dogs. "He's inside," Marco said. "Are you coming in?" "No, ma'am." "Why not?" "Because he told me not to." Marco reached past her and put his hand on the knob and did not turn it. "Miss Carter, one thing." "Yeah." "He's not going to raise his voice. Don't let that fool you. When he goes quiet, that's not calm. That's him doing math." Then he opened the door, and Emily Carter walked into Victor Romano's office at 2:12 in the morning with a bar rag still hanging out of her apron pocket, and the first thing she said was not what she had planned to say. "You had somebody walk me to the train." Victor was standing by the window with his back to her. He didn't turn around. "Marco talks too much." "For 8 months." "Yes." "Every night." "Yes." "Why?" "Because in November," Victor said, "a man followed you from the service exit to Milwaukee Avenue and turned around at the corner and came back the next Tuesday and turned around again, twice more in December." Emily's stomach dropped straight through the floor. "That's not true." "You're welcome to think that. I would have noticed. You were carrying 2 bags and a phone with a cracked screen, and you were reading your mother's lab results while you walked," Victor said. "You crossed against the light at Chicago Avenue on the 11th of December, and a cab horn missed you by about a foot, and you didn't even look up. Emily, you notice everything about other people. You notice nothing about yourself. That's not a compliment. That's the most dangerous thing about you." She stood there with her heart going like a bird in a box. "Who was he?" she said. "He was nobody. He was paid $40 a night, and he never touched you, and he doesn't work in this city anymore." "Who paid him?" Victor turned around, and Emily saw for the first time up close that the man everybody in Chicago was afraid of looked tired. Not movie tired, real tired, the kind that lives under the eyes and doesn't wash off. "Sit down," he said. "I'd rather stand." "I know you would." He gestured at the chair anyway. "Sit down, Emily. You've been on your feet for 9 hours, and you gave $140 to Rosa last night, and you haven't eaten since noon, and you're about to hear some things you're going to want to be sitting for." Emily sat down so fast it was almost falling. "How do you know about the 140? That's not the question you want to ask. How do you know about the 140? Victor walked to his desk. He didn't sit. He put 2 fingers on a folder lying there and turned it around so it faced her, and then he pushed it maybe 6 inches across the wood and stopped. "There's a camera in the locker room," he said. Emily's face went hot, then cold. "There's a what?" "Behind the maintenance panel. It was installed the year we opened 4 years before you walked in here, and it points at the lockers and the door and nothing else. And it exists because in this business people steal, and in this business people also get hurt, and I would rather have a tape than a lawsuit." "You watched me in a locker room." "I watched a hallway with lockers in it," Victor said, "fully clothed, standing up, counting money. And the answer you're looking for is yes, I saw it, and yes, that's a violation, and no, I'm not going to insult you by pretending it isn't." Emily was on her feet without deciding to be. "You don't get to do that." "I know. You don't get to sit up here in the dark for 8 months and watch a girl cry in a hallway like it's television." "I know." "Then say something else." It came out louder than she meant, and it rang around the office, and she heard it come back off the glass, and she thought, well, there it is. There goes the job. There go the bookstore hours and the bus fare and the $1,100 a month. Say something else. Defend yourself. People like you always defend yourselves. Victor Romano looked at her for a long moment. "No," he said. "No what?" "No, I'm not going to defend it. You're right. I have no defense. I've had that camera off since 1:15 this morning, and it's coming out of the wall Thursday, and that doesn't unmake a single night of it." He put his hands in his pockets. "You want me to argue so you can win. I'm not going to. I did something I'm not comfortable with, and I did it anyway. And if you walk out of here right now, I'll have Marco drive you home, and you'll still have your job, and nobody will ever say a word to you about tonight." Emily stood there breathing hard. "That's not fair," she said. "What isn't? You agreeing with me. I had a whole thing." And for 1 second, 1 single second, something happened at the corner of Victor Romano's mouth that on a normal man would have been a smile. "Sit down, Emily." She sat down. At 2:19, he opened the folder. "Before I say anything else," Victor said, "I want you to understand the order of events, because the order is going to matter to you later, and if you get it wrong, you're going to hate the wrong person, and God knows there's a right person available. Okay? Your mother's account was assigned Monday at 10:15 in the morning." 9 minutes after I paid it," Emily said. "I know. Their guy told me. He was on my stairs at 3 a.m. Victor's face changed. It was not much, a 1/4 inch, but she saw it, and she understood that she had just handed him something he did not have. "Say that again." "He was on my stairs, Kessler, Meridian Recovery. Kessler came to your building. At 3 in the morning, yeah. Alone? Yes. Did he touch you? No. Did he come inside? No. He sat on the top step like a lost dog, and he offered me a settlement." "How much?" $31,000, Emily said. 10 days. And Victor Romano turned away from her and stood very still, and Emily remembered what Marco said on the stairs, that when he goes quiet, that's him doing math. He was quiet for 11 seconds. She counted because counting was what she did now. 31, he said. "Is that supposed to mean something?" "It means everything." He turned back around. "Emily, do you know what a debt is worth on the secondary market medical paper? On a woman in stage 4, no assets, 1 daughter, no cosigner. Somebody buys that for 4 cents on the dollar. 4 cents, $94,000 of paper is worth about $3,700 to a collector, and a smart collector would take $3,000 from you and call it a great Tuesday." Emily's mouth opened slightly. "He asked for $31,000. "He asked for $31,000. Victor said, "which is a number designed to be impossible for you and pocket change for me. That's not a collection, Emily. That's an invoice with my name on it." The room seemed to tilt. "Say that again." "He wasn't collecting from you." Victor pushed the folder the rest of the way across the desk. "He was pricing you." Emily didn't touch the folder. "You said his name like you know him." I know all of them. Then who's Meridian? Meridian Recovery Group was incorporated in Delaware 19 months ago. It has 2 employees and a mailbox. It has bought 11 medical accounts in the state of Illinois since March, and Emily listened to me carefully because this is the part where you're going to want to throw something. I'm listening. All 11 of those people work in my buildings. Emily sat absolutely still. What? A line cook at the restaurant on Halstead. A janitor at the property in Bridgeport. Rose's brother-in-law. 11 people. 11 families. Every one of them draws a check from a company I own, and every one of them has a sick relative, and somebody has been going down that list for 19 months, buying up their misery for 4 cents on the dollar and holding it. Why? Emily whispered. Because paper isn't money to a man like him. Paper is a leash. Emily put her hands flat on her knees because they had started shaking and she needed them to stop. The man tonight, she said. Table 9. Anthony Moretti. He knew my father's name. I know. He said, ask him about the $94,000. He said, ask whose name is really on your mother's account. She looked up. So I'm asking. And here Victor Romano did something Emily was not prepared for at all. He sat down. He pulled the chair out from behind the desk and sat down across from her close enough that she could see a scar under his jaw she'd never noticed from 40 feet up, and he put his elbows on his knees like a man at a kitchen table and not like a king, and he said, mine. Emily's ears rang. What? Until Monday morning at 10:15, Victor said, the name on your mother's account was mine. At 2:26 in the morning, Emily Carter stopped breathing for about 4 seconds. No, she said. Yes. No, I paid it. I paid $1,100 a month for 14 months. I have every receipt. I have a shoebox I have. You paid $1,100 a month against a bill that ran $9,000 a month, Victor said. Emily, do the arithmetic. You're better at arithmetic than anybody in this building. What did you think was covering the other 7-9? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out, because she had thought about it. She had thought about it at 4 in the morning more than once, and she had told herself it was a charity program, a foundation, a grant, one of those things you hear about, and every single time she had put the thought down fast and walked away from it, because when you are drowning, you do not swim over to inspect the raft. There was a letter, she said slowly, from the hospital last February. It said her protocol had been approved for a compassionate care allocation. Yes. There's no such thing, is there? There is now, Victor said. It's got a nice logo. Marco's cousin designed it. Emily made a sound. It wasn't crying. It wasn't laughing. It was something in between that came out of her chest sideways. 8 months, 14. 14 months since 2 weeks after you started. Why? She was standing again. She didn't remember standing. Why? Why would you? You didn't know me. You never spoke to me. I have never in 14 months said one word to you. Why? Because on your 9th shift, Victor said, a man at table 6 put his hand on the back of Rosa's leg, and you took a glass of ice water, and you spilled the entire thing in his lap, and you apologized for 11 straight minutes while he screamed at you, and you never once, not once, looked over at Rosa because you knew if you looked at her, he'd know why you did it. Emily's eyes were burning. That's it? That's the whole reason? That's the whole reason. That's insane. Yes, Victor agreed. That's a glass of water. Emily, Victor said, I have 300 people on payroll. In 14 months, not one of them has ever cost themselves $1 to protect somebody who couldn't do anything for them. Not one. You did it in your 9th shift, before you knew who I was, before you knew there was a balcony, before you knew anybody was watching. Do you understand what that is? That's not kindness. Kindness is cheap. Everybody's kind when there's a camera. That's character. That's the rarest thing on earth, and I have not seen it in 20 years. So, you bought my mother's cancer treatment, Emily said, because I spilled water on a guy. Victor was silent. Say it, she said. Say it out loud so I can hear how it sounds. Yes, he said. And Emily Carter, who had not cried in front of another person in 11 years, who had not cried at her father's funeral, who had not cried when the insurance letter came, who held it and held it and held it and only ever moved it, put both hands over her face and made a terrible sound and could not stop. Victor didn't move. He didn't reach for her. He didn't say, "They're there." He sat in his chair 4 feet away with his elbows on his knees and let her do it. And after about 90 seconds, he said in a completely ordinary voice, "There's water on the shelf behind you." And that was all. At 2:34, she got herself back. "I'm sorry." "Don't. I don't do that. I know you don't. That's the problem." She wiped her face with the bar rag, which was the only thing she had, which struck her as so absurd that she laughed once wetly. "Okay," she said. "Okay, so Monday, 10:15. Monday at 10:15, Victor said, somebody walked into the hospital's revenue office with cash and bought your mother's account out from under a foundation that doesn't exist. That takes an inside name. That takes somebody who knew the allocation was fake, knew which account, and knew the exact hour to move so that your payment cleared first. Why does my payment matter? Because it's cruel, Victor said simply. That's the entire reason. He took your $1,100 first so that you would know he could. That's Anthony. That's who he's been since we were 19. Since you were 19. Victor stood up and walked to the window. How long have you got? He said. It's 2:30 in the morning, Mr. Romano. I've got as long as you want. At 2:37, he told her. Anthony Moretti's father and my father ran the West Side together for 19 years. Not a movie, not opera. Two men in bad coats collecting envelopes from bakeries. Anthony and I grew up eating at the same table. He taught me to drive. I was in his wedding. Emily said nothing. In 2001, my father decided he was done. He was 53, he had a bad heart, and he wanted out, and he wanted his people to go into something legal, concrete, trash hauling, anything. Victor's voice did not change at all, and somehow that made it worse. Anthony's father disagreed. There was a meeting. My father went to the meeting. And my mother and my sister were in the car outside because we were going to dinner after. The room went absolutely silent. Mr. Romano? Emily. How old was your sister? 9. Emily put a hand over her mouth. I was 22, Victor said. I was inside, I was parking the car, I was 40 seconds away, and I have spent 20 years understanding exactly how long 40 seconds is. He turned around. Now, do you want to ask me why I built the balcony? She couldn't speak. I built it because I never want to be 40 seconds away from anything again, he said. That's it. That's the whole psychology. You can take it to a doctor if you like. They'll charge you $200 to tell you the same thing. Emily sat down slowly. Why are you telling me this? Because in about 4 minutes I'm going to ask you for something, Victor said, and you're entitled to know who's asking. At 2:43 he made the offer. I want you off the floor. What? I want you out of the apron. I want you working for me directly. Personal assistant is what it says on the paperwork. What it actually means is that you'd be the person in the room who tells me when I'm wrong. And Emily, I need to be honest with you about how rare that is. Because right now, there are 11 men on my payroll who would drive a truck into a wall if I asked them, and not one who'd tell me the wall was there. I'm a waitress. You were a junior at Northwestern with a 3.9 in English, and a professor named Dalrymple who wrote in his recommendation letter that you were the best reader of people he'd had in 19 years. Emily's head came up sharply. How do you have that? I've got a folder. You've got a folder. Emily, I've got a folder on the man who cleans the ductwork. That's not the same. No, he said. It isn't. She stood up and walked 4 steps and turned around, which was as much pacing as the room allowed. What's the salary? 90. 90 what? 1,000. Emily laughed out loud. To answer your phone. To tell me the truth. It's underpriced. Ask me why. Why? Because I've paid $400,000 a year to men who lie to me, Victor said. The market rate for honesty in my life is apparently infinite because nobody's selling. And the medical. Full. Effective the day you sign. Her Thursday infusion happens Thursday. The hold releases in about 4 hours if you say yes. Emily stood very still. There it is, she said. There what is? The leash. She looked at him. You just did the thing. You just did the exact thing Moretti did. You put my mother's life in one hand and a piece of paper in the other, and you said, choose. Victor did not flinch. Yes, he said. So how are you different? And here for the first time all night, Victor Romano's voice actually moved. "I'm not," he said. "That's the answer. I'm not different, Emily. I'm using the same lever, and I hate it, and I'm doing it anyway. And if you want me to tell you a story about how I'm the good one, you've come to the wrong office. The only distinction I'll claim is this. He's pulling the leash to take something from you. I'm holding it because I don't know another way to keep you alive, and I have been sitting up here for 8 months trying to think of one, and I have nothing. That's not virtue. That's a failure of imagination. But it's the truth, and you asked." Emily stared at him. "Okay," she said quietly. "That was honest. Don't reward me for it." "I'm not. I'm just noting it." She sat back down. "I want 3 things." Victor's eyebrows moved a millimeter. "Go ahead." 1. The 140 I gave Rosa. That was mine, and it stays given. But Rosa gets a real physical, a real one, with a real pulmonologist, and she doesn't know it came from me, and she doesn't lose an hour of pay for going. Done. 2. Carla is 19 years old, and she's on table 12 4 nights a week because Dominic thinks she's decorative. She goes to the bar service station and she gets trained, and if Dominic argues you don't fire him, you make him train her personally. Something moved across Victor's face. Why not fire him? Because he's got a kid in Catholic school on Ashland, and he pays for it with this job, Emily said, and I'm not going to solve a bad man by making a bad father. Victor Romano looked at her for a long, long moment. Done, he said. 3. Emily's voice went very flat. You tell me about my father. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Emily, Moretti said he knew him. He said Danny Carter, sweet man, terrible cards. He said he used to sit right about where I was standing. Different club, same city. She leaned forward. So either that man walked into your club at 11 at night and made up an 11-year-old story about a dead accountant for fun, or you already know, and you've known the whole time, and you've been sitting up here in your bird's nest deciding when to tell me. Victor didn't answer. Say it. Emily, say it. At 2:51 in the morning, Victor Romano said, I've known for 8 months. Emily's whole body went cold. 8. Yes. Not 14. No. 14 months ago, you were a waitress who spilled water on a jackass. 8 months ago, I had you looked into properly, and what came back sat on my desk for a week before I could read it twice. Read me the first line. No. Read me the first line, Mr. Romano. Victor went to the desk. He opened the drawer, not the folder on top, a different one, a lower one, and he took out a single sheet of paper that was creased in 3 places, like a thing that had been folded and unfolded 100 times, and he did not hand it to her. Daniel Robert Carter, he read, died March 4th, 2015, single vehicle, Lakeshore Drive at Fullerton, 1:40 in the morning. Blood alcohol 0.0, no skid marks. No skid marks, Emily repeated. No skid marks. What does that mean? It means he didn't break. Emily sat with that. That's what a heart attack looks like, she said. Or falling asleep. Yes. But that's not what you think it is. No. What do you think it is? Victor put the paper down. Emily, I want you to hear the difference between what I know and what I think, because I've watched men die over people who couldn't tell those apart. What I know, your father lost $41,000 over 19 months at a card game in a basement on Grand Avenue. What I know, the man who ran that game was on Anthony Moretti's payroll. What I know, 3 weeks before he died, your father made a payment of $11,000 against that debt, which was more money than he had, and I have no idea where it came from, and neither, I would bet, does your mother. Emily's hands had gone numb. And what you think? What I think is not evidence. What do you think? I think, Victor said carefully, that a man who has just found $11,000 is a man who has just agreed to do something. And I think men who agree to do things for Anthony Moretti sometimes change their minds. And I think the drive at Fullerton is a very easy place to change a man's mind for him. The room was so quiet, Emily could hear the ice machine 2 floors down. You're telling me my father was murdered? I'm telling you I don't know, Victor said. I'm telling you nobody looked. He was an accountant with a mortgage. It was a Tuesday, there was rain on the road, and the city of Chicago closed it in 9 days. I'm telling you that in 8 months I have not found one thing that proves it, and not one thing that lets me let go of it. Emily stood up. She walked to the door. She put her hand on the knob and stood there with her back to him for about 20 seconds, and then she said without turning around, "Did you hire me because of him?" "No." "Don't do that. Don't just say no." "I hired you," Victor said, "on a Tuesday in October off a flyer in a coffee shop on Damon because Dominic said we were down 2 girls, and I said fine. I didn't know your name for 6 weeks. I didn't know your father's name for 6 months. Emily, if I had wanted Danny Carter's daughter, I wouldn't have needed a flyer. I could have knocked on your door." "The flyer," Emily said slowly. "What about it?" "There was one flyer, in one coffee shop, on Damon." Victor said nothing. She turned around. "How many coffee shops did you put flyers in, Mr. Romano?" 11, Victor said. "It was a normal hiring push. It happens twice a year. And of the 11, how many were within 4 blocks of my apartment?" The silence went on 1 beat too long, and Emily Carter watched the most powerful man in Chicago realize in real time that he was about to lie to her. "Don't," she said. "Emily, you said honesty was the thing you were buying. $90,000 a year for it. So don't stand there and get it wrong in the first 10 minutes. Victor Romano exhaled. "1, he said. "1 what?" "1 of the 11 was near your apartment. And I chose the location personally, and I have never chosen a flyer location in my life, and I did it in September, 4 weeks before you walked in." Emily's back hit the door. "Why?" "Because in August," Victor said, "I was in a bookstore on Milwaukee looking for a birthday present for a man I don't even like. And I asked the girl behind the counter what to get somebody who's never read a book. And she talked to me for 19 minutes. And she was so tired, she was swaying on her feet. And at the end she said, 'Don't buy him the famous one, buy him this one. Because the famous one is for people who already like books. And this one is for people who don't know they do yet.'" Emily couldn't feel her face. "I don't remember that." "I know you don't," Victor said. "You sold 11 books that day. I was number 4. You never looked at me twice. And Emily, do you understand that no one has failed to look at me twice in 20 years? Everybody looks. Everybody looks and does the arithmetic and decides what I'm worth to them. You looked at me and saw a guy who needed a book. So you put a flyer near my house." "Yes." "That's not a job offer," she said. "That's a trap with a paycheck." "Yes," Victor said. "It is. I'm not going to argue with you. I want you to say it out loud, and I want you to hear me not argue, because you're going to need to remember this conversation in about a month when somebody tells you I've been running you like a piece on a board, and I want you to be able to say, 'He told me himself in his own office at 2 a.m. before I signed anything.'" Emily stood against the door and breathed. "Did you know," she said, "in August, in the bookstore, did you know she was sick?" "No." "Did you know about my father, Ma?" "No." "Do you swear that?" "I don't swear," Victor said. "I've watched men swear to things. It's a decoration. I'll tell you what I'll do instead, which is that in that folder on my desk, there's a printout of every search my people ran on you, and every date they ran it, and the earliest one is November 11th, and you can check the timestamps against the flyer contract, which is also in there dated September 22nd. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to be able to verify me. That's a better thing than belief, and it costs less when it breaks." Emily walked back to the desk. She opened the folder. She read for 4 minutes without saying a word, and Victor Romano stood at his window and let her. At 3:06 in the morning, she closed it. "The dates line up," she said. "I know." "That doesn't make you good." "No," he agreed. "It makes me consistent. That's the most you're getting from me tonight." Emily rubbed her eyes with the heels of her hands. "I have to ask you something, and you're going to hate it." "Go ahead." "Rose's brother-in-law, you said his account got bought." "Yes." "So this Meridian thing has been going down a list of your employees for 19 months, buying up their sick relatives." Emily looked up. "How did you not know?" Victor said nothing. "How did you not know you have a folder on the duct guy? You know I skipped lunch. You know I crossed against a light in December. And you're telling me somebody's been walking through your company for 19 months with a shopping cart and you didn't notice?" And there it was. Emily watched it happen. She watched Victor Romano's face do the thing she had seen 100 times across 100 tables, the thing a man's face does about half a second before he understands he has been robbed. "Say that again," he said. "Which part?" "The list." His voice had gone very low. 11 accounts. "Say it again." "Somebody had to know who was sick," Emily said slowly. "Who's got a mother in the hospital? Who's got a brother-in-law on dialysis? Who's got a kid with a bad heart? That's not public. You can't buy that on a website." She looked at him. "That's HR." Victor put one hand on the desk. "Say the rest." "Somebody in this building," Emily said, "has been selling your people's medical information to Anthony Moretti for 19 months. At 3:11 in the morning, Victor Romano picked up his desk phone and dialed 4 numbers and said, "Wake up Bennett, not on the phone. Bring him here." Then he hung up and looked at Emily Carter for a long moment with an expression she could not read at all. "You've been in this office 59 minutes, he said. "Okay. In 59 minutes, you found something 19 men missed for 19 months. That's not a compliment, that's an indictment. Your 19 men are idiots." "My 19 men," Victor said, "are exactly as smart as they need to be to keep their jobs. That's the difference. They're paid to look where I point. Nobody's paid to point." Emily was quiet. "That's the job," she said. "Isn't it? That's the actual job." "Yes." "You don't need an assistant. You need a witness." Victor didn't answer, which was the loudest yes she'd ever heard. At 3:17, she said, "Where do I sign?" Victor's head came up. "Emily, don't. I want you to take a day." "I don't have a day. She has an infusion Thursday." "Take a day anyway. I'll release the hold now tonight with no signature, and if you walk out of here in the morning and never come back, the hold stays released and the coverage runs until she's finished, and I'll never contact you again." Emily stopped. "What? You heard me? That's not how leverage works." "It's exactly how leverage works," Victor said. "It just isn't how blackmail works. Emily, if you sign that page tonight because your mother's got a needle in her arm on Thursday, then in 6 months you'll be standing in this office hating me, and you'll be right, and I'll have bought exactly the thing I said I didn't want, which is another person who lies to me because they're scared of me." He pushed the phone across the desk. "So, I'm making the call now. And then you're going home, and you're going to sleep for 11 hours, and Thursday she gets her treatment either way. And Friday, if you want the job, come find me." Emily stared at the phone. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's the only way to know," Victor said. "Know what? Whether you'd have come back." At 3:22, he made the call. It took 90 seconds. Emily listened to a man wake up a hospital administrator at 3 in the morning and say 4 sentences in a voice so calm it sounded like a weather report, and hang up and slide the phone back. "Done," he said. "Thursday 9 a.m. Same nurse. Her name's Andrea. Your mother likes her." Emily's throat closed. "How do you know the nurse's name?" "Emily," Victor said gently, "please go home." She got to the door, and then she stopped because there was one more thing, and she'd been carrying it for an hour, and it had gotten too heavy. "Mr. Romano?" "Yes." "Tonight, Moretti. He said, does she know yet? He said, does she know why you watch her?" She turned around. "You told me about the water glass. You told me about the bookstore. You told me about the flyer and the folder and the man who followed me in November. You told me everything, and you told it fast, and you told it before I asked. And Mr. Romano, I have spent 14 months serving drinks to men who tell you everything." Victor Romano stood very still. "Say it," he said. "They tell you everything," Emily said, "so you'll stop asking about the one thing." The silence stretched out. 12 seconds. She counted. "Go home, Emily," Victor said. "That's not a no. Go home." And she went. At 3:41 in the morning, Emily Carter stood on a blue line platform with her coat wrapped around her and her cracked heel hooked over the yellow line, and she did not think about Victor Romano at all. She thought about $11,000. 3 weeks before he died, her father had paid $11,000 he did not have. She had been 13 years old that March. She remembered the month with a strange, awful clarity, because it had been the best month of her childhood. Her father had come home one Friday and told her mother to put on a dress. He had taken them both to a restaurant with cloth napkins. He had bought Emily a coat, a real one, a wool one, and she had worn it for 4 winters, and when she outgrew it, she had cried and her mother had said, "We'll get another one, sweetheart." And they never did. Emily stood on the platform at 3:41 in the morning and thought he was so happy that month. He was so happy. What do you agree to do, she thought, to be that happy? At 3:52, she got on the train, and at 4:11, she let herself into her apartment, and she did not sleep because she had one phone call left to make, and she knew exactly how bad it was going to be. She made it at 7:15 from a plastic chair in the hallway outside her mother's room because she could not do it in front of her. Northwestern Patient Accounts, this is Denise. Denise, it's Emily Carter. Miss Carter. Oh, honey, I was just about to call you. I don't know what happened, but somebody released the hold at 3:30 this morning, and I've never seen... I know. Denise, I need to ask you something, and you're not going to want to answer. A pause. Okay. The assignment on Monday, you said it was executed at 10:15. Yes. Somebody had to run that, on your end. Somebody had to pull the account and process the sale and put it through the system, and it takes a name and a login. Denise's voice got very quiet. Miss Carter, I really can't. Denise, 9 years you've worked there. You told me you hate this. So you tell me one thing and I'll never call you again. What? Whoever ran it, Emily said. Do they work for the hospital? The silence went on so long she thought the call had dropped. No, Denise whispered. Emily's hand tightened on the phone. What? It came in under a vendor credential. Third-party billing partner, they've got access for the collections queue. It's normal, everybody does it, it's... Denise, what's the vendor? I'll lose my job. I know. I've got 2 kids. I know, Emily said. I know exactly what I'm asking you for, and I'm asking anyway, and I'm going to be ashamed of it later, and I'm still asking because my mother is 58, and she taught 2nd grade for 26 years, and I am the only person she has. Denise made a small sound. Then she said a name. And Emily Carter sat in a plastic chair in a hospital hallway at 7:19 in the morning and felt the entire floor go out from under her because the vendor on the credential was not Meridian Recovery Group, and it was not a hospital, and it was not a name she had never heard before. It was the company that processed payroll for every employee at Black Velvet. She was still sitting there 4 minutes later when her mother's door opened and a nurse said, Miss Carter, she's awake, and honey, she's asking for you, and I have to tell you she seems upset about something. Emily went in. Margaret Carter was sitting up. She had the hospital tray table pulled across her lap, and on it was a folded newspaper, 4 days old, that somebody had left in the chair, and it was open to the business section, and there was a photograph. Her mother's hand was shaking so hard the paper rattled. Mom? Emily. Her mother's voice did not sound like her mother's voice. Emily, who is this man? Emily looked down at the photo. Victor Romano in a suit at a ribbon cutting for a pediatric wing in Bridgeport 4 days ago, not smiling. Mom, why? Who is he? He's my boss, Emily said. He owns the club. Mom, what's wrong, what? And Margaret Carter, who had held it together through a diagnosis and a prognosis and 11 years of widowhood, looked up at her daughter with an expression of absolute terror and said, Your father had this man's phone number in his wallet the night he died. At 11:24 in the morning, Emily Carter sat in a car pulled crooked against a curb on Ashland, with her mother's phone ringing in her ear and a man's voice coming out of it like warm milk. Emily. Sweetheart, we were just talking about you. She did not scream. She would think about that later for years, that the thing her body chose to do was go absolutely quiet. Put my mother on the phone, she said. She's right here. She's fine. She's got color in her face, which is more than I expected. Honestly, they told me stage 4, and I thought, well... A pause. Margaret, say hello to your daughter. There was a rustle. Emily. Her mother's voice was small and steady, and Emily heard the effort in it, the 26 years of 2nd grade, the voice you use when the fire alarm goes off and 30 children are watching your face. Emily, don't come. Mom, do not come here. The phone moved. She's very brave, Moretti said. You get it from her, you know. Not from Danny. Danny was a lot of things, but brave was never. If you touch her... Emily! He sounded hurt. Genuinely hurt. I brought flowers. Ask the nurses. I signed in at the desk. I used my own name. I'm sitting in a chair by the window like anybody's uncle. Nobody's touching anybody. That's not how this works, and you know it because you've been in my world for about 11 hours now, and you're smart, and smart girls figure out fast that the whole trick is I never have to touch anything. Victor put his hand out for the phone. Emily turned her shoulder and would not give it to him. What do you want? She said. 20 minutes of your time. Where? Right here. Room 411. Come alone. Come in through the front like a person. Don't bring the gentleman who's sitting next to you, breathing through his teeth. Emily's stomach dropped. You don't know who's sitting next to me. Sweetheart, Anthony Moretti said gently. I know what he had for breakfast. And he hung up. At 11:26, Victor Romano said no. Victor. Absolutely not. Marco's 9 minutes out. I've got 2 more on Wells. I can have that floor. You can have that floor covered in men in 11 minutes, and my mother will be dead in 9. Emily! No, listen to me. She grabbed his wrist, and it startled him so badly he stopped talking. You want to do the thing your whole life has trained you to do. You want to move fast and put bodies in a hallway. Victor, look at me. He signed in at the desk. He used his own name. He brought flowers. Do you understand what that is? That's a man building a photograph. He wants your men in that hospital. He wants 4 large gentlemen in the pediatric elevator on a Wednesday. And then he wants somebody with a phone to film it. And then he wants a headline that says, the Romano organization stormed Northwestern Memorial. Victor's jaw was working. He's 4 feet from your mother. He's 4 feet from my mother in a room with 2 cameras and a nurse named Andrea who checks her every 20 minutes. Emily's voice cracked. Victor, he's not there to hurt her. He's there because he knows I'll walk in. That's the same thing. No, Emily said, it isn't. And you can't tell the difference anymore, and that's the whole reason you need me. Victor Romano sat in a car with his hands on a steering wheel and did not move for 4 seconds. 9 minutes, he said. Then I'm coming in. 20. 9. Victor. Emily. His voice broke. It actually broke. Your father was 20 minutes away. And Emily Carter sat there with all the air gone out of her. Okay, she said. 9. At 11:41, she walked into room 411. He'd brought lilies. That was the detail she never got over. Not a hitman, not a bodyguard, not a gun. Lilies in a plastic hospital vase arranged because the man had arranged them himself. Anthony Moretti stood up when she came in. He stood up like a gentleman like her father used to when her mother entered a room, and he said, There she is. Mom. I'm all right, sweetheart. Mom, are you? Emily. Her mother's hand found hers and gripped it with a strength that had no business being in that arm. I'm all right. Sit down, Emily, Moretti said. I'll stand, he smiled. Your mother said the exact same thing, he said. 20 minutes ago, word for word. It's remarkable, really. You Carters. He sat back down. You've got about 9 minutes, he said, before Victor comes through that door with a man who used to play defensive end for Loyola, so let's not waste them. Emily's heart stuttered. How do you... Because I've known Victor Romano since we were 4 years old, Moretti said. Emily, I know what he'll do before he knows. He gave you a number. What was it, 10-9? She said nothing. 9, he said, delighted. Oh, that's beautiful. That's the whole man in one number. Do you know why 9? Because 40 seconds is the number he can't say out loud, so he splits it up and hides it in other numbers. And he's been doing it for 20 years, and he doesn't even know. Say what you came to say. All right. Moretti folded his hands. Your father stole from me. That's a lie. It's not actually. That's the interesting part. He stole 19 months of my business. He copied it. Every entry, every transfer, every name, and then he got in a car. You had him killed. The room went silent. Margaret Carter's hand tightened on Emily's until it hurt, and Anthony Moretti looked at Emily with an expression of such perfect, gentle patience that she wanted to put her hands through his face. No, he said. Don't. Emily, don't you dare sit in a room with his wife and... I did not kill your father, Anthony Moretti said, and I have been trying to find out who did for 11 years, And that, sweetheart, is why I am sitting here with lilies. At 11:45 in the morning, Emily Carter's entire understanding of her own life came apart in her hands. You're lying. Am I? You invented the gambling. $41,000 in a basement on Grand, a book kept by your guy. Yes, he said it instantly, cheerfully. Yes, absolutely I did that. I built that over 18 months and it was beautiful work and I'd do it again. Emily's mouth opened. You admit it? Of course I admit it. Emily, why would I hide it from you? You already know it. He leaned forward. Now think. Why does a man build a gambling story? To ruin him. No, think. To have a reason to. Emily. Moretti's voice sharpened for the first time, and under the warmth there was something old and cold and very tired. You build a gambling story so you have a leash. A leash is a thing you use on a living dog. I spent 18 months and a fortune building a story that only has value if Danny Carter is alive and afraid. And 3 weeks after I finally get the leash on him, somebody puts him in the lake. He sat back. Does that sound like my work, truly? You've been in this thing 11 hours. You tell me. Emily could not speak. I don't kill accountants, Anthony Moretti said. I collect them. Killing an accountant is what an amateur does when he's frightened, and Emily look around does anything about me look frightened. Then who? Ah. He smiled again, and this time there was nothing warm in it at all. That's the 20 minutes. At 11:47 he said, Your father called Victor Romano at 1:12 in the morning. Emily's blood stopped. How do you know that? Because I've known it for 11 years. How? Sweetheart, I had a man on Danny's phone. That's not exotic. That's Tuesday. Moretti spread his hands. Here's what I know. 1:12 he calls Victor. Victor doesn't answer. He leaves a message. 1:40 he's in the water at Fullerton. 28 minutes Emily. And in those 28 minutes, exactly one person on this earth knew Danny Carter was driving south on Lake Shore with my whole life in a shoebox. Emily's ears filled with noise. No, I'm not saying he did it. You are, that's exactly. I'm saying, Moretti said, that for 11 years I have watched Victor Romano look for those books harder than a man looks for something he wants to publish. He's torn up storage units. He bought a parking lot in Cicero. Emily, he bought a parking lot. Ask yourself what a man does with 19 months of evidence against Anthony Moretti when he finds it. If he's a good man, he hands it to the government, and I go to prison, and Emily, look at me. Look at my coat. Am I in prison? The room was spinning. He wants it to bury you. He wants it to own me, Moretti said. Yes, now you're doing it. Now you're thinking. That's exactly what he wants, and I have never once pretended otherwise, and here is the part you're not going to like. He leaned in. So do I. Emily stared at him. What? I want them too, sweetheart. Obviously, I want them in a fire. Moretti's voice was almost kind. Emily, I am the villain. I know that. I've known it since I was 19. I'm not here to convert you. I'm here because there are exactly 2 men left alive who want that shoebox, and only one of them has been lying to you about it, and it isn't me. At 11:49, Emily Carter said the sentence that changed everything. Then why my mother's account? Moretti blinked. It was small. It was almost nothing. But Emily Carter had spent 14 months reading faces across tables for tips, and she saw it, and it was the first honest thing that had happened in that room. Excuse me. Monday, 10:15, 9 minutes after I paid $1,100. Emily stepped forward. You bought a dying woman's debt, and you called Rosa Vargas, and you made her say no to my name just so you could hear her say it. Why? To get your attention. You had my attention. You could have sat at table 9 any night for 14 months. Emily. You bought 11 accounts, she said. 11 families. All of them Victor's people. All of them with somebody sick. 19 months. And you say you're not frightened. Moretti's face did not move. Mr. Moretti, Emily said, and her voice was shaking with something that was not fear. "Who's the leash for silence?" "You built a machine for buying people's sick relatives," she said. "That's not how you hunt a shoebox. That's how you find out who's talking. You've been sitting inside Victor's company for 19 months, squeezing everybody with a hospital bill because somebody in that building knows where my father's books are, and you can't find them either." Anthony Moretti looked at her for a long, long moment, and then he laughed. It was a real laugh, delighted, exactly like the laugh in the club. "Oh," he said. "Oh, Danny, you did make a good one." "Answer me." "You're right," he said. "Completely right, top to bottom. And I want you to know that in about 11 hours, you've done what 19 of my men couldn't. And Emily, that's not a compliment either. My men are as smart as they need to be." He stood up. "Yes, I've been squeezing. Yes, I'm looking. And no, I don't have them. And I have never had them. And here is the thing that has kept me awake for 11 years. He buttoned his beautiful coat. "Neither does Victor." "You don't know that." "I know that the way I know my own hands," Moretti said. "Because if Victor Romano had those books, Emily, I would have been in a federal courtroom in 2016. He didn't sit on them for 11 years out of mercy. Nobody sits on a thing like that, which means it's still out there, which means somebody's got it." He looked at her. "And Monday morning," he said, "I finally understood who." Emily's whole body went cold. "What?" 14 months ago, Victor Romano puts a hiring flyer in a coffee shop 4 blocks from your apartment, Moretti said. 14 months ago, Danny Carter's daughter starts carrying trays in his club. 14 months, Emily. And in 14 months, that man never asked you one question about your father. Not one. Why not? Emily could not breathe. "Because he didn't know." "Because he was waiting," Moretti said. "For you to say it first. Sweetheart, he didn't hire a waitress. He planted a girl next to himself and waited 11 years for her to remember something. That's not... And Monday, when I bought your mother's account, he moved." Moretti smiled. 9 minutes, and a man who hasn't come off that balcony in 3 years walked across his own floor. "Emily, I didn't buy that debt to hurt you. I bought it to see if he'd flinch." Emily's back hit the wall. "You used my mother," she said, "as a test." "Yes. She's dying." "Yes," Anthony Moretti said. "That's what made it a good test." And Margaret Carter, who had not spoken in 9 minutes, said from the bed in a voice like a closing door, "Get out of my room." Moretti turned. "Margaret." "Get out of my room," she said again. "You came to my husband's funeral. You shook my hand. You said if you ever need anything." She was sitting up. Emily had not seen her sit up unassisted in 5 months. "I have been sick for 2 years, and I have been tired for 11, and I have never in my life wanted to hurt someone until right now, so I am going to ask you one time, and then I am going to start screaming. And every nurse on this floor is going to come running and see a man in a nice coat standing over a woman with a needle in her arm. Get out." Anthony Moretti looked at her, and then he did something that made Emily's skin crawl for the rest of her life. He bowed. "Ma'am," he said. He got to the door. "Emily, one thing." He didn't turn around. "Ask him what time he woke up." "What?" "Ask Victor what time he woke up on March 4th, Moretti said. "He'll tell you 7. He's told that story for 11 years. He put his hand on the frame. "Now ask him why, at 1:31 in the morning, 19 minutes after your father's call, somebody used Victor Romano's parking card at the garage on Wabash." And then he was gone. At 11:54 in the morning, Emily Carter slid down her mother's hospital wall and sat on the floor. "Sweetheart." "Mom." "Emily, look at me. Look at me." "He's lying." "Maybe." "He's lying, Mom?" "That's what he does. He doesn't touch anything. He just says things and lets you tear yourself apart. He told me that himself. That was the whole..." "Emily." Her mother's voice cut through. "Where's the coat?" Emily's head came up. "What?" "Your father's message." Margaret Carter's face was white and absolutely calm. "You said it in the hall. You didn't think I heard you. I bought my kid a coat with his money." "Mom." "He said it twice." "Mom, how do you..." "Emily." Her mother's eyes were burning. "I put the dress on. 11 years ago, I put the dress on, and I ate the chicken, and I never asked one question, and I have been paying for it every single night since." She reached out. So I am asking now, where is the coat? At 12:02, Victor Romano came through the door with Marco behind him, and Emily Carter stood up off the floor and looked at him and said, "What time did you wake up?" Victor stopped dead. What? March 4th, 2015. Her voice was not shaking. What time did you wake up? Emily, what did he die? What time? 7, Victor said. 7 in the morning. I heard the message at 7. Then why? Emily said, was your parking card used at Wabash at 1:31? The room went silent, and Emily watched Victor Romano's face, watched it hard, watched it the way she'd watched 100 men across 100 tables, and what she saw there was not guilt. It was confusion. Then it was something worse. Say that time again, Victor said. 1:31. Emily. He'd gone gray. I didn't have a car in 2015. What? I didn't drive. I hadn't driven since 2001. His hand had come up to his mouth. I didn't get behind a wheel again until 2017. Emily, in 2015, there was exactly one person who had my card because he was the one who drove me. Who? Emily said. Victor Romano said, Leo. At 12:04, Marco said very quietly, Boss. Not now. Boss? Marco's face had done something Emily had never seen on it. Leo Brandt signed a car out of the Wabash garage 9 minutes ago. Victor turned around. Where's he going? Boss, he took the Ashland car. And Emily Carter's blood went to ice because there was only one thing on Ashland. My mother's apartment, she said. At 12:19, they came up the stairs of a building that smelled like other people's dinners, and the door of apartment 3C was standing open, and Emily Carter walked into her mother's bedroom and saw a man on his knees pulling a box out from under the bed. He was 56 years old. He had reading glasses on a chain. He had been signing Victor Romano's wires for 9 years. He looked up, and he said, Oh, Emily, not fear, not defiance, grief. Leo, Victor said. Vic, get up! I can't, Leo Brandt said, and Emily realized he was crying. Vic, I've been on my knees on this floor for 6 minutes, and I can't make myself open it. Nobody moved. You killed him, Emily said. Leo Brandt closed his eyes. Yes, he said. At 12:21 in the afternoon, the whole world stopped. Say it out loud, Victor said, and his voice was the quietest thing in the room. Vic, say it out loud, Leo, in front of his daughter. Your father was going to give it to you, Leo said. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. He was going to hand you 19 months of Anthony Moretti's life, and you were 28 years old, and you were going to use it. And Vic, you were going to use it. Don't stand there and tell me you weren't. So I'd already buried your father, Leo Brandt screamed it. I'd already buried your mother and your sister, and I sat in the car with you for 9 days after, and you didn't eat, Vic. You didn't eat for 9 days. And then Danny Carter calls at 1 in the morning with a shoebox, and I thought they'll come. They will come, and they will not miss twice, and there will be nobody left to bury. Emily could not feel her hands. You listened to the message, she said. I was in the next room. You heard my father laugh. Leo Brandt made a sound. I heard him laugh, he said. And you got in a car. I got in a car. He was 20 minutes away. He was 20 minutes away, Leo said. And I got on Lake Shore and I put my lights on and he pulled over Emily. That's the part, do you understand? He pulled over. He knew my face. He rolled the window down and he said, Leo, thank God. And I said, Danny, give me the box. Emily's legs went. Marco caught her. And he wouldn't, Leo said. So you... I never touched him, Leo Brandt said. Emily, I swear before God I never touched him. I stood on the shoulder of Lakeshore Drive at 1:35 in the morning, and I told a 39-year-old accountant that if he brought that box to Victor Romano, everyone Victor loved was going to die, and I asked him to burn it, and he looked at me. Leo's whole body was shaking. He looked at me, and he said, Leo, I bought my kid a coat. And he got back in the car, and he drove away. And he went off at Fullerton 9 minutes later, and there were no skid marks. And I have spent 11 years. He fell asleep, Victor said. Silence. He'd been up 30 hours, Victor said slowly. He'd been up 30 hours, and he'd just been told by a friend that a man was going to die because of him. Leo. He fell asleep. I don't know that. Neither do I, Victor said. That's what you get. That's your sentence, Leo. 11 years of not knowing and 11 more and 11 more. Leo Brandt put his forehead on the floor next to Margaret Carter's bed. And then you told Anthony, Emily said. No. You've been feeding him for 9 years. You sat in a room at 4 this morning and told him to leave my mother's holdup. I told Anthony nothing. Leo's head came up. Emily, listen to me. I have never spoken one word to Anthony Moretti in my life. I've been trying to find that box for 11 years so I could burn it and be the only man who ever knew, and this morning you said the word coat in a car, and I was in the seat behind you, and I thought... The room went absolutely silent. You were in the car, Victor said. I drove you, Leo said. This morning, to the hospital. Vic, I've driven you every day for 25 years. At 12:26, Emily Carter walked past all of them, got on her knees on her mother's floor, and pulled the box out herself. It was a cardboard box. It said, Riverside moving on the side. It had been under that bed for 11 years. She opened it. There was a scarf. There was a Cubs hat. There were 4 Father's Day cards in a child's handwriting. And there was a coat, wool, navy blue, size 10. Emily Carter held her coat in both hands and could not see anything at all for about 9 seconds. Emily, Victor said. She turned it over. The lining had been opened along the bottom seam and sewn shut again badly by a man who had clearly never sewn anything in his life in thread that did not match. Oh, Daddy, Emily said. She got her thumb into it, and the stitches came out like nothing, like they'd been waiting, and she reached inside the lining of a child's winter coat and pulled out a plastic sandwich bag. Inside it was a memory card, the size of a fingernail, and a folded piece of paper. She unfolded the paper. She read 4 words and put her hand over her mouth. What does it say? Victor said. Emily couldn't. Marco took it. Marco read it. Marco, who was 6'4" and had never in 9 years shown a single thing on his face, handed it to Victor Romano and turned around and looked at the wall. Victor read it. Then he sat down on the edge of Margaret Carter's bed in the apartment of a woman he had been paying for 14 months and read it again. Read it, Emily said. Emily, read it out loud. Victor Romano read her father's handwriting out loud in a room with 4 people in it. If you're big enough to find this, you're big enough. I'm sorry about the coat. Ask Vic, Dad. Nobody spoke for 11 seconds. Ask Vic, Emily said. Yeah. He wrote that in February, she said. 3 weeks before he died. Victor, he wrote your name in a coat and gave it to a 13-year-old. I know. He thought I'd find it in a month, Emily said, and her voice went to pieces. He thought I'd feel it. He thought his kid would put her hand in her pocket and find a lump and come running, and I didn't. Victor, I wore it 4 winters, and I never. She was folding in half. I outgrew it. I cried because it was too small. And Victor Romano did the first physically kind thing Emily Carter had ever seen him do. He put his hand on the back of her head, once like a father, and took it away. At 12:34, Leo Brandt was still on the floor. Vic, he said. Vic, please. Victor stood up, and Emily watched it happen. She watched 20 years come up through a man's body. She watched him go completely still, the way Marco had told her about on the stairs, the way that isn't calm, the way that's math, and Marco saw it too and said, Boss, in a voice she'd never heard him use. Marco, Victor said, take his phone, take his keys, take his wallet. Boss, don't. Take them. Boss. Marco, Victor Romano said, in about a minute, I am going to tell you to put a 56-year-old man in the trunk of a car, and you're going to do it because you've done it before, and afterward you and I are going to be exactly what everyone in this city already thinks we are. So please do me the courtesy of shutting your mouth. Victor, Emily said, don't. Victor. Emily, he killed your father. I know. He stood on a road and frightened a good man to death, and then he drove me to your mother's hospital this morning. I know. He has sat next to me every day for 11 years. It tore out of him, and it was the first time Emily had ever heard Victor Romano shout, and it was terrible. 11 years I have looked for a killer, and he passed me the salt. Emily, he was in the room, every night, every single night, when I sat up there watching you carry a tray at 2 a.m. Do you know where he was? He was behind me, making coffee. The room was silent. Emily Carter stood in her mother's bedroom with a child's coat in her hands. "Victor," she said, "look at me." He didn't. "Look at me." He looked at her. "What did he do it for?" she said. "What, Leo, what did he do it for? Say it." Victor's mouth was a line. "Say it." "He did it for me," Victor said. "That's right." Emily's voice was so quiet. "He did it because he was terrified somebody was going to take another person you loved. He did it out of love, Victor. That's the whole horror of it. He did the worst thing anybody's ever done to me, and he did it because he loved you, and now you want to put him in a trunk." "Yes, for love." Victor's eyes closed. "Do you hear it?" Emily said. "Victor, do you hear it?" That's the same sentence. That's the same exact sentence, twice 11 years apart. And if you finish it, you are not going to be a man who avenged my father. You're going to be the second man who killed somebody in my family out of love. And Victor, I will not have it. I will not have my father's death be the reason another woman gets a bag with a wallet in it. Nobody moved. "Leo Brandt has a wife," Emily said. "Doesn't he?" 41 years, Victor said. "Look at me and tell me you want to be the man who calls her." Victor Romano stood in the middle of a bedroom in Ashland for a long, long time. And then at 12:41 in the afternoon, he said, "Marco, boss, take him to Bennett," Victor said. "Not the garage, not the lot. Bennett's office with the lawyer in the room and a recorder on the table and Leo." Leo Brandt looked up from the floor. "You're going to say every word of it out loud," Victor said, "into a machine with your name on it, and then you're going to say it again to a federal attorney. And Leo, I want you to understand what I'm doing to you because I'm not being kind. 11 years you've carried this alone, and it's been eating you, and I think some sick part of you has been enjoying it. That's over. Now everybody's going to know, your wife's going to know, your grandchildren are going to know. You wanted to be the only man who ever knew." He crouched down. "Now you're going to be the man who told." Leo Brandt started to cry so hard he couldn't breathe. At 12:46, Marco walked him out, and Emily Carter stood in her mother's bedroom holding a memory card the size of a fingernail, and Victor Romano said, "Emily, that's 19 months of Anthony Moretti's life in your hand. I know. 2 men have looked for that for 11 years. I know. Emily," he was watching her very carefully, "what are you going to do with it?" And Emily, Carter, 24 years old, waitress, dropout daughter, looked at the thing her father had sewn into her winter coat with his own 2 hands and given to her and said, whatever he was going to do with it. Victor Romano did not answer her for a long moment. "Emily," he said, "you don't know what he was going to do with it." "Yes, I do." "You were 13. "He was driving to your apartment," Emily said, "at 1 a.m. He wasn't driving to a federal building, Victor. He wasn't driving to the Tribune. He was driving to a man he trusted to hand him a box and say, 'You decide.'" She closed her hand around the memory card. "So, decide. Emily." "No, you don't get to hedge." Her voice was climbing. 11 years you wanted this. It's in my hand. Tell me what you were going to do with it." Victor Romano looked at her for 4 seconds. "I was going to own him," he said. "Say the rest." "There is no rest. That's it. That's the whole plan, Emily. That's the entire architecture of 11 years. His voice was flat and hard and disgusted. "I was going to take those books, and I was going to sit across a table from Anthony Moretti, and I was going to make him ask me for permission to breathe, every day, for the rest of his life. Not prison." "Prison's 12 years, Victor said. "Prison's a bed, and 3 meals, and a lawyer, and a parole hearing, and he comes out at 72 and dies in Florida with a tan. I don't want him in prison. I want him at my table." "Victor, you asked." "I know I asked." "So there it is," he said. "That's what your father was driving toward. That's what he was going to hand me. And Emily, he knew it. That's the thing that's had its hand around my throat for 11 years. Danny Carter wasn't a fool. He knew exactly what I'd do with it, and he got in the car anyway, and I have never in 11 years understood why. And Emily Carter stood in her mother's bedroom with a coat over her arm and understood something that made her sit down on the edge of the bed. Because he wasn't bringing it to a criminal, she said slowly. Emily. He was bringing it to his friend. Victor went still. He wasn't handing you evidence, Victor. He was handing you a decision. Her eyes came up. He'd already made his. That's what the message is. That's the whole message. He said, I did something and I fixed it and now I'm going to unfix it. He wasn't asking you to destroy Moretti. He was showing you what it looks like when a man gives the money back. Victor Romano did not move at all. He was worried about you, Emily said. Don't. He was 39 years old with a wife and a kid and a man on his phone and $41,000 of a lie on his head. And at 1 a.m. he called and said, I need you to hear it from me first because your dad would have. Emily's voice broke. Victor, he didn't finish that one either. What would your dad have? Victor's hand went over his mouth. Say it. My father, Victor said, would have gone to Anthony's father and said this is over. 2 men in bad coats at a table. He lowered his hand, and he'd have taken the loss. That's what my father did. That's why he went to the meeting. And what did your father get for it? He got shot in the throat, Victor said, and his wife and his 9-year-old daughter got it in the car outside. The room was silent. So, no, Victor said. No, Emily. I've had 20 years to think about my father's beautiful idea, and I have looked at the photographs, and I'm not doing it. Your father was wrong. He was a good man, and he was wrong, and he was so wrong that it killed him, and I loved him, and he was wrong. At 12:53 in the afternoon, Emily Carter said the sentence that ended 11 years. Then why do you have the phone? Victor's head came up. What? The phone. She was standing now. The one in the safe. 11 years. New battery twice. A cord in the drawer, you replace it once a year. Her voice was shaking. Victor, if you wanted revenge, you'd have kept his file. You kept his voice. Victor Romano's face did something she had never seen it do. You didn't keep it as evidence, Emily said. You kept it because a man laughed at you at 1 a.m. and it's the last time anybody in this city talked to you like a person and not like a thing they were afraid of. Emily. You've been charging a dead man's phone for 11 years. Emily, stop. Say I'm wrong. Victor Romano opened his mouth, and nothing came out. And Emily Carter watched the most powerful man in Chicago fail to lie for the first time in front of her, and she did not feel triumphant. She felt sick and tender and about 900 years old. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. At 2:11 that afternoon, they sat in Bennett's office and looked at 19 months of Anthony Moretti's life. It took 4 hours to open it. The card was 11 years old, and Bennett would not touch it without a duplicate, and then a duplicate of the duplicate. And he worked with his glasses pushed up and his hands shaking slightly, and did not speak the entire time. Then he sat back. Boss. Say it. Your accountant was an artist, Bennett said. Emily leaned forward. It's not a shoebox, Bennett said. That's what I want you to understand. Everybody's been calling it the books for 11 years, like it's a pile of paper. It's not. It's a map, and it's annotated. And Mr. Romano, he wrote it for somebody who isn't an accountant. What does that mean? It means there's a document in here called Read This First, Bennett said. In caps. He wrote a 9-page letter explaining his own evidence in plain English so that a person who's never seen a ledger could follow it. Boss, nobody does that. Nobody. He wrote it like a teacher. Emily put her hand over her eyes. His wife's a teacher, she said. Nobody spoke. Bennett, Victor said. How bad is it for Anthony? There is no word, Bennett said. 11 shell companies, 19 months of transfers, 61,000 pages if you print it. But that's not the bad part. What's the bad part? Bennett turned the laptop around. Page 4 of the letter, he said. He made a list of every account that received money, and he flagged the ones he couldn't explain. And boss, 4 of them aren't businesses. Victor leaned in. They're people. They're people, Bennett said. And Mr. Romano, I've been doing this 9 years, and I know 2 of these names. Victor read. Emily watched his face and saw it go absolutely white. Victor, she said. He didn't answer. Victor, what? Emily, Victor said, and his voice sounded like it was coming from 100 feet down. "Do you remember what I told you last night about why your father didn't go to the police? You said he was looking at their names." "Yes." "So," Victor turned the laptop around. "Read the third one," he said. Emily read it. She didn't understand. "Who is that?" "That," Victor Romano said, "is the man who signed the accident report on your father's car." At 2:54 in the afternoon, Emily Carter stood up so fast her chair went over. "He was paid." $11,000, Bennett said quietly. "February 11th, 2015. The room tilted. "February," Emily said. "That's before. Victor, that's 3 weeks before. Dad died on March 4th. "Yes. They paid the man who wrote the report 3 weeks before there was a report." Nobody said anything. "Bennett," Victor said, "are you certain?" "I'm certain of the transfer, boss. I'm not certain what it bought." "Say it anyway." Bennett took his glasses off. "It bought a file that closes in 9 days, he said. At 2:57, Emily Carter said, "Leo didn't kill my father." Victor's head came up. "Emily, Leo stood on a road at 1:35 and let him drive away." She was breathing too fast. "Victor Leo let him drive away, and Moretti didn't do it. Moretti was building a leash. Moretti wanted him alive." "Emily, sit down." "Somebody paid a man in February to close a file in March," she screamed. Silence. "Bennett," Victor said. "Whose money?" Bennett wouldn't look up. "Bennett, it came out of Anthony Moretti's account," Bennett said. "Then he—" "Boss, it came out of Anthony Moretti's account," Bennett said, "and Anthony Moretti didn't authorize it." The room went absolutely still. "Explain that," Victor said. "Explain that to me in words a waitress can follow, because if you can't, we're all going to say something stupid in the next 4 seconds. Bennett turned the screen. "Every disbursement in this system has 2 signatures, he said. 19 months, 4,000 transfers, 2 signatures every time. Anthony and his operations man. Boss, there are 6 transfers in here with 1 signature. All 6 in February. All 6 to people, not companies. And the signature on all 6 isn't Anthony's." Emily could not breathe. "Whose is it?" Bennett said a name. And Victor Romano sat down. "Emily," he said, "that's Anthony's operations man. He's been with him since they were kids, the way Leo was with me. He drove Anthony. He made his coffee." Emily's hands were over her mouth. "He was scared," she said. "Yes." "He was scared his boss was going to lose everything to an accountant." "Yes." "And he didn't tell him," Emily said. "Victor, he didn't tell him. That's why Moretti's been looking for 11 years. That's why he's been squeezing every sick family in your building. He doesn't know either. He's been hunting the box because he thinks somebody's got it, and his own man. His own man, Victor said, has been standing behind him, making coffee." Emily sat down on the floor. She just sat down right there in Bennett's office at 2:59 in the afternoon. "It's the same," she said. "Emily, it's the same, Victor. It's the exact same. Leo Brandt on Lakeshore Drive and this man in February, they're the same man. They did the same thing out of the same love for the same reason on both sides of the same war." She laughed, and it was awful. "Nobody in this whole story wanted my father dead. Nobody. Not one person. 2 men who loved their bosses too much and a road at 1 in the morning." Nobody spoke for 11 seconds. "Emily," Victor said, "look at me." She looked up. "That's not nobody," he said. "Somebody bought that report in February. That's not fear. That's a man planning." At 4:20 in the afternoon, they were still going. "Boss," Bennett said, "there's a problem." "Say it." "Anthony's man is dead." Victor closed his eyes. "When?" 2019. Heart attack. He was 61. "So there's no one to charge." "There's no one to charge," Bennett said. "Boss, there's no one to charge for anything about Danny Carter, ever. The man who paid is dead. The man who wrote the report retired to Arizona in 2017 and died last year, and Leo Brandt didn't touch him." He looked up, miserable. "Mr. Romano, I've been through it 4 times. Legally, Danny Carter fell asleep at the wheel on March 4th, 2015, and he always will have." Emily Carter sat very still. "Say that last part again," she said. "Miss Carter, say it again." "Legally," Bennett said, "your father fell asleep." And Emily Carter started to laugh. She laughed until Victor Romano came around the desk and crouched in front of her, and she laughed until it turned, and then she said, 11 years. 11 years, and there's nobody to hate. There's nobody to hate Victor. Do you know what I've been carrying up 11 flights of stairs at 3 in the morning for 2 years? I thought there was a man. I thought there was a man somewhere with my father's name in his mouth, and one day I'd know it. Emily. And there's nobody. There's Anthony, Victor said. Emily stopped. He didn't kill him. No, Victor said. He built the room. Emily, listen to me. He didn't kill your father, and he didn't need to. He built a world where a good man could take $11,000 and buy his kid a coat, and be so ashamed of it that at 1 in the morning he'd be too tired to see a curve. Everything that happened on that road, Anthony Moretti built the road. He built the debt that never existed. He built the shame. He built the man on the phone. He built the guy in February who got so scared he bought a report nobody ended up needing. Victor's voice was shaking. Emily, that's what he is. That's what he's always been. He never touches anything. He told you that himself in a hospital room with lilies. Emily wiped her face with the flat of her hand. So what do we do? That, Victor said, is the only question left. At 6:10 that evening, Emily Carter sat next to her mother's bed and told her all of it. Every piece. Nothing softened. Margaret Carter listened without saying a word for 19 minutes. Then she said, "Read me the letter." "Mom, page 4, the list." "Mom, you don't need." "Emily." Her mother's eyes were dry, and that was somehow the worst part. "For 11 years I have believed my husband was a man who lost. You have in your hand 9 pages he wrote to explain himself to somebody who isn't an accountant." She reached out. "Sweetheart, he wrote it for me." Emily's face crumpled. "Read it." Emily read it. It took 40 minutes, and about a third of the way through, Margaret Carter started to cry, and she never once asked her to stop. At the end, she said, "That's his voice." "I know. He explains things twice." Her mother laughed wetly. "He always did that. He'd say it, and then he'd say in other words, and I'd say, 'Danny, I heard you the first time,' and he'd say, 'Yeah, but did you get it?'" Emily put her forehead on the blanket. "Emily." "Mom." "What are you going to do with it?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." "Mom, I don't." "Emily Ann." Her mother put a hand on her head. "You've known since you were on the floor of my bedroom. You just don't want to say it in front of him because he's been kind to you and you're afraid he'll leave." Emily's head came up. "That's not—" "Sweetheart," Margaret Carter said, "I put the dress on. Don't you dare put the dress on." At 11:50 that night, Emily Carter walked into Victor Romano's office for the 3rd time in 26 hours. She was not wearing an apron. Victor was standing at the glass looking down at the floor of his club where 200 people were drinking $11 drinks, and not one of them knew that anything had happened in the world. "Marco says you went to the hospital," he said. "I did." "How is she?" "She had her infusion Thursday morning," Emily said. 9 o'clock. Nurse named Andrea. "It's Wednesday, Emily." "It's Thursday. It's 10 to midnight." She stopped in the middle of the room. "It's been 22 hours, Victor. That's it. That's how long this whole thing has taken. I want you to know that because I feel like I've been alive for 900 years. Victor turned around. "You've made a decision." "Yes." "Say it." Emily Carter put the memory card on his desk. "It goes to the government," she said. "All of it. Tomorrow. Every page." Victor Romano didn't move. "Emily, don't." "Do you know what's in that?" "Yes." "No, you don't," he said, and he came off the glass. "Emily, page 4. 4 names. 2 of them are still working. One of them is a sitting judge in this city, and one of them ran your father's inquest. And if that goes to a federal attorney tomorrow morning, do you know what happens? It goes into a queue. It goes to a man with 200 cases and a boss who plays golf. And Emily, 3 of those names have friends. It'll sit for 9 months. It'll leak in 4. And then Anthony Moretti will know exactly where it came from, and he will not come for me. I know. He'll come for a dying woman on the 4th floor of Northwestern Memorial. I know, Emily said. Then how are you standing there? Because he already did that, Emily said. Victor, he already did it. He sat in her room today with lilies. That's not a threat anymore, that's Tuesday. He's already the worst thing that can happen to us, and he's been the worst thing that can happen to us since I was 13. What exactly am I protecting by keeping quiet? 11 more months of quiet. I've had 11 years of quiet. It cost me my father, and it cost my mother her mind, and it cost Rosa Vargas her sister. Emily. You want to sit across a table from him? Emily said. Say it out loud. Victor's jaw locked. I want him at my table, he said. Yeah. Emily nodded slowly. You want him at your table, and Victor, here's the part I've been sick about all day, because you're right. You are. It's smarter. Prison's 12 years, and you're offering forever. You'd own him by Friday. You'd have him calling you before he changed barbers. She stepped forward. And in 11 years, when some other kid's dad is standing on a road at 1 a.m, whose road is it going to be? Victor Romano stopped breathing. You'd have him, Emily said. You'd have his 11 companies and his fish market and his funeral home and his 4 names on page 4. You'd have all of it. Victor, you'd be Anthony Moretti with a better reason. That's not. You'd have a leash, she said. That's his word. That's not mine, that's not yours, that's his. You said it to me at 2 a.m. in this room. You said paper isn't money to a man like him, paper's a leash. And Victor, you knew what it was called when you said it, because you were describing yourself. Silence. You don't understand what you're throwing away, Victor said. I understand exactly what I'm throwing away. You're throwing away the only thing that's ever going to make him stop. No, Emily said. I'm throwing away the only thing that was ever going to make you into him. And Victor Romano turned around and put both hands on the glass and stood there over his own club with his head down. Emily. Yeah. Do you know how many nights I've stood right here? 240, she said. You told me. 240 nights, Victor said, watching a girl carry a tray and thinking that's what he made. That's what Danny made. And I would think when I have those books, when I finally have them, I'll go down there and I'll tell her I fixed it. I got him. Your dad didn't die for nothing. His voice went. That's the whole prayer, Emily. That's the only prayer I've had for 11 years. And now you're standing in my office at midnight telling me to mail it to a stranger. Emily Carter walked over and stood next to him at the glass. Victor, she said, look down there. He looked. Table 12, she said. See him? He put his hand on a 19-year-old's apron on Monday, and I put myself between them and smiled at him for 4 minutes about his boat, and he gave me $20. She didn't look away. You know what I thought about standing there? I thought, I hope this man dies. I thought it very calmly holding a tray. And then I went and got him his Macallan with the big cube because he hates it when it melts. Emily, every night, she said. Every single night for 14 months, I have been 3 inches away from becoming somebody I don't want to be. And the only thing that stopped me was that I couldn't afford to. Victor, that's the truth. I wasn't good. I was broke. If somebody had put a leash in my hand in month 9, I would have used it, and I would have told myself I earned it. Victor's hands were flat on the glass. Somebody just did, Emily said. It's on your desk. At 12:19 in the morning, Victor Romano said, Your father would have made the same call. I know. And it killed him. I know. Emily, it killed him. Victor. Emily's voice was very soft. You keep saying that like it's an argument. He wasn't wrong because it killed him. He was right, and it killed him. Those are 2 different sentences, and you've been mashing them together for 11 years because it's easier than being the man who thinks his father was right. Victor Romano put his forehead against the glass, and Emily Carter watched a man's entire skeleton give out standing up. Vic, she said, it's Danny. Don't. That's what he said. Emily, don't. He said I did something and I fixed it, and now I'm going to unfix it, and I need you to hear it from me first. Her voice cracked. He wasn't calling for help, Victor. Nobody calls for help at 1 a.m. and laughs. He was calling because he'd already decided, and he wanted you to know before you heard it from somebody else. He was calling to tell his friend he'd chosen right. Victor didn't move. So pick up, she said. You said you'd pick up. At 12:22 in the morning, Victor Romano said, Not the federal attorney. Emily turned. Victor, listen to me. I'm not fighting you. I'm not. He turned around and his face was wet, and neither of them ever mentioned it, not once, for the rest of their lives. Emily, you're right, and I'm going to do it. But you're going to do it wrong, and it's going to get somebody killed, and that's not an argument, that's a fact, and you hired me to tell you when the wall's there. Emily almost laughed. That's my line. I know it is. That's what I'm paying for. He came off the glass. You don't hand it to one office. You hand it to 9, simultaneously. The federal attorney, the Illinois Attorney General, the State Judicial Inquiry Board, because of Page 4, the Tribune, the Sun-Times, ProPublica, 2 national desks. And Emily, you put a copy in a safe deposit box in your mother's name with a letter that opens if anything happens to either of us. Emily stared at him. 9. 9 at once, Victor said. That's the whole trick. One copy is a secret, and a secret can be bought. 9 copies at 8 in the morning on a Thursday isn't information anymore, Emily. It's weather. Nobody can buy weather. Nobody can call a friend. By 9:15, it's on 4 websites, and there's no version of Anthony Moretti's life where killing a waitress helps him. Emily sat down slowly. You've thought about this. Emily, I've thought about this for 11 years. He almost smiled. I just never once thought about doing it. At 8:04 the following morning, 9 envelopes went out, and Emily Carter's hands did not shake once. At 8:41, ProPublica called. At 9:11, the Tribune called. At 9:40, Anthony Moretti called Victor Romano's private line, which 4 people on Earth had, and Victor put it on speaker and let Emily hear it, because he had promised her there would never be a room she wasn't in. Vic. Anthony. There was a very long pause. 9, Moretti said. 9. 9 offices, Vic. 9. I've had 4 calls in an hour. Another pause. That's not you. Vic, I've known you since we were 4 years old, and that's not you. You'd have kept it in a drawer and made me come to your house on Sundays. That's right. So that's the girl. That's the girl. Anthony Moretti was quiet for 11 seconds. Danny's kid, he said. Danny's kid. And then Anthony Moretti laughed. It was a real laugh, delighted exactly the same laugh, and Emily's skin crawled off her body. Oh, that's beautiful, he said. That's beautiful, Vic. 11 years I've been afraid of you, and it was a waitress. Anthony. No, I want to say it. I want to say it out loud while I've still got a phone. His voice was almost affectionate. Vic, I want you to know something, because in about 4 days, nobody's going to talk to me again. You had it. For 22 hours, you had it in your hand, and you could have had me. You could have had me at your table for the rest of my life. And I'd have come, Vic. I'd have come. I'd have sat down, and I'd have poured. And you gave it to the newspapers. Yes. Why? Because your father put a hole in my father's throat, Victor Romano said. And I've spent 20 years trying to figure out how to be the one who wins. And it turns out the only way to win is to not be the last one holding the leash. Anthony, there is no table. That's the answer. There was never going to be a table. Silence. Vic. Yeah. Did I kill Danny Carter? And Emily Carter leaned forward, because in that one question, in the naked hunger of it, she finally understood that the man had been asking it for 11 years too. No, Victor said. Anthony Moretti made a sound. No, Anthony, Victor said. Your man did it in February, without telling you, because he loved you and he was frightened, and he bought a report for $11,000, and then Danny fell asleep at Fullerton, and your man never had to use it, and he carried it for 4 years, and then his heart quit. Who? Victor said the name. The silence went on so long, Emily thought the line had dropped. He made my coffee, Anthony Moretti said. I know, Victor said. Mine did too. And Anthony Moretti hung up, and neither of them ever spoke to him again. At 2:11 that afternoon, the story broke on 4 websites at once. At 4:30, it was on the national news. At 6:09, a sitting judge resigned. At 11:50 that night, Emily Carter sat on the floor of the employee hallway at Black Velvet, under the fluorescent light that buzzed like something dying, because it turned out that was where she still went when she needed to think. Rosa Vargas found her there. Honey? Rosa. Rosa sat down on the floor next to her, which at 53 with her hip took about 9 seconds and 2 sounds. They said your face is going to be on the television. They said that to me too. Is it true? Probably. Rosa nodded slowly. My sister called me, she said. Emily's head turned. Elena. She read it. In the paper. About the doors. Rosa's chin was trembling. 26 times, Emily. She read that her sister made her think she was losing her mind 26 times. Rosa, She drove over, Rosa said. She came to my house at 7 in the morning and she stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen, honey, the exact same kitchen where that man drank my coffee, and she looked at me. Emily couldn't breathe. What did she say? Rosa Vargas put her hands over her face. She said, "Why didn't you tell me?" she said. She said, "Rosa, I would have unlocked it myself." And the two of them sat on the floor of an employee hallway and cried until they couldn't. 14 months later, Emily Carter stood on the floor of Black Velvet at 11 o'clock on a Friday night and watched a 19-year-old girl named Carla run the bar service station like she'd been born there. Emily? Yeah. Table 12. What about him? He asked for you. Emily looked over. He was still there. Men like that were always still there. Do you want me to take it? Carla said. No. Emily smiled. I want you to tell him the club has a policy now, and if he doesn't like it, he can talk to the owner. Carla grinned and went. Rosa Vargas came out of the back with a clipboard and a lanyard and no tray because she had not carried a tray in 11 months, because she was the floor manager now, and because a pulmonologist named Dr. Reyes had told her in September that if she'd waited another year, they'd have been having a very different conversation. Boss, Rosa said, don't call me that. Boss, the linen guy's short again. Then call the linen guy. I did. He said he'd talk to the owner. Rosa. I'm just reporting, Rosa said, delighted, and walked away. Emily Carter looked up at the balcony. The glass was gone. That was the first thing Victor had done. Not the last, the first 4 days after the story broke with a crew at 8 in the morning. And Emily had stood on the floor and watched 40 feet of smoked glass come down in pieces and had not asked him why, because she already knew. He was up there now. He was up there most nights, and everybody could see him, and that was the entire point. He came down at midnight. 93%, he said. Of what? Occupancy. It's a Friday. Victor, I don't care. I know you don't. I'm telling you because you own 11% of it, and Bennett says I legally have to. Emily laughed. Anthony Moretti was arraigned on 19 counts on a Tuesday in March. The trial was set for the following year. He never sat at anyone's table again. The Vargas Fund paid off 406 medical accounts in its first 18 months. It was named after Ramon, who was still alive, and who thought that was hilarious, and who told everyone who'd listened that he was the only man in Chicago with a charity named after him who still had to do his own dishes. Leo Brandt pled to obstruction and served 19 months. His wife did not leave him. Emily Carter, who had every right to never think about him again, wrote to him twice, and both times she wrote the same thing at the bottom, and both times he sat on his bunk and could not read past it. He got in the car anyway, Leo. He knew what you told him, and he got in the car anyway. He wasn't running from you. He was going to his friend. Margaret Carter finished her protocol in April. She was not cured. The word nobody used was remission, and the word everybody used was Thursday, as in she's got a good Thursday, as in we'll see about Thursday. She got 11 more months, and then she got 11 more. And at the time of this telling, she is 61 years old, and she has started reading to first graders at a school on Ashland on Wednesday mornings, 4 hours, which exhausts her completely, and which she will not give up for anything on this earth. She keeps the letter in a frame, not the coat. The coat is in a box under her bed, which is where it lives, which is where it has always lived. The letter, the 9 pages, page 4 included, sits framed on the wall of a second-grade classroom that isn't hers anymore, next to a photograph of a man who was very bad at knowing when to stop and very good at knowing when to start. Emily Carter went back to school in the fall. She took 19 credits and worked 40 hours and slept like the dead, and she wrote a book, and it was not about a mafia boss, and it was not about a girl in 6-inch heels. It was called The Coat. It was about a 13-year-old who cried because something didn't fit anymore. On the night before it came out, she and Victor stood on the balcony that didn't have glass in it, and he said, "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Why?" "Because everyone's going to read it," Emily said, "and everyone's going to think it's about you." Victor Romano was quiet for a second. "Is it?" Emily looked out at the floor, at Carla, at Rosa, at 11 waitresses, who all knew each other's names, in a room where nobody was invisible anymore. "Victor," she said, "you were never the story. You were the person who noticed there was one." And she meant it, and he knew she meant it, and that was the last night either of them ever asked. Here is what Emily Carter says now when they put her on a stage and ask her what it was all about, which they do, and which she hates. She says her father was an accountant who bought a coat with dirty money and spent 3 weeks so ashamed of it that he tore his own life apart to give it back. She says a man watched her from a balcony for 8 months and never once came down, and that this was not romance, it was cowardice, and that it took a dead man's voice on an 11-year-old phone to get him down the stairs. She says a 53-year-old woman unlocked a door 26 times to keep her brother-in-law alive, and that she is not sorry for her, she is proud of her. And if you don't understand the difference, you have never been poor. She says nobody in the whole story wanted her father dead. She says that's the part that should scare you. And then she says the thing that ends it every time, and the room always goes quiet because it is not a comfort, and it was never meant to be one. They tell you the powerful see everything and the rest of us are invisible. That's backwards. Her father saw the whole map and it killed him. Victor Romano had a folder on every soul in Chicago, and it took a waitress 59 minutes to find what 19 of his men missed for 19 months. Anthony Moretti knew what Victor ate for breakfast and never once noticed the man standing behind him with the coffee. Nobody was invisible, they just weren't looking. Emily Carter was.